At 1:05 a.m. between June and October, Turkish Flight 111 departs Istanbul for JFK. While that departure time might seem quite late, what makes Flight 11 even more bizarre is its arrival time of 4:35 a.m., making it a red-eye. That might not sound strange since most transatlantic flights are red-eyes, but most of those head east. While exceptions occur on longer flights from Africa, the Middle East, nearly all westbound transatlantic flights depart in the morning or early afternoon, arriving later that same day. Which is logical. By flying west during the day and east at night, airlines can keep their planes flying almost non-stop. What's perhaps even stranger than Turkish Flight 111 is Flight 112, which departs JFK at 6:50 a.m. before arriving in Istanbul at 11:25 p.m., effectively making it a daytime flight. The only other market that has consistently kept daytime flights is London, which is also the world's largest aviation market by passenger numbers and is one of the world's leading business hubs. That's why airlines, including American, British Airways, JetBlue, United, and Virgin Atlantic, keep planes in cities like Boston and New York instead of flying another red-eye back to Europe. These airlines know that there's some business travelers who just want to go to the hotel and sleep upon arrival, and they're willing to pay more for that. But the fact that this hasn't worked in other markets, like Paris and Rome, which are the second and third most popular transatlantic markets from New York, makes the choice of Istanbul odd. Now, we can probably make a pretty good guess on who this flight isn't for. Despite Istanbul's status as a global trade hub, it just doesn't have the same pull that other cities like Frankfurt, Paris, or Rome do when it comes to business travel. Even though executives might like the idea of this flight since they can get a full day in the office in Istanbul and New York, the fact that it only operates 2 to 3 times a week in the peak summer months when business demand is weaker suggests otherwise. Premium passengers prefer flexibility, where business routes are served year-round and often with multiple flights per day. And while there are up to 4 other daily flights between Istanbul and New York, those are all served by Turkish. By contrast, London, Paris, and Frankfurt have at least 5 airlines serving them, with multiple airlines on both sides of the Atlantic. Now, that isn't to say that some people won't take advantage of this flight. After all, new flights are also about creating demand. That's because Turkish operates one of the world's largest global hubs in Istanbul, where people can connect from Southeast Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia, which also happen to be places that aren't well connected even to cities like New York. By offering another flight, Turkish offers passengers another travel time that isn't really offered anywhere else, besides the Middle Eastern hubs of Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Doha, where Emirates, Etihad, and Qatar offer 24/7 connectivity. While Turkish competes less against these airlines for transatlantic connections in cities that are closer to Turkey, like Baku in Azerbaijan or Sofia in Bulgaria, they do compete with them for connections from Africa, Southeast Asia, and increasingly Australia. But like those hubs in the Middle East, Istanbul's main airport also operates 24/7, so it's more competitive, where Turkish can sell shorter connections, which reduces the total travel time. But that schedule is also possible with new, smaller international planes like the Boeing 787-9. So rather than competing on product like Etihad and Emirates do with the world's largest passenger plane, the Airbus A380, Turkish competes on frequency. But Flight 111's arrival time of 4:35 a.m. might be more about optimizing the return time of 11:25 p.m. on Flight 112. That's because a lot of other flights arrive from Europe around the same time, where passengers can then connect to other destinations in Turkey, the Middle East, or beyond. So if Flight 112 would leave later than 6:50 a.m., then people wouldn't have the opportunity to connect, while any local passengers would be arriving in the middle of the night. While New York is known to be one of the world's strongest markets, where airlines airlines can make money just on local traffic alone, it's likely that Turkish wouldn't be reaching its full potential with this flight if they didn't offer connections beyond New York. That's why Turkish partners with JetBlue, which flies to cities in Florida and the Caribbean which Turkish doesn't serve. Where sure, these cities might not be important enough for Turkish to fly their own planes to, but any marginal passengers that Turkish can add can make the difference between a flight that's unprofitable to one that makes money. This is also made possible given how passengers can book these connections with confidence to a city like Orlando, even though Turkish and JetBlue operate out of separate terminals at JFK. Meaning that not only do passengers have to go through customs, they have to go out of the terminal, back through security, onto a train, all of that. But that's also possible given how quiet it is earlier in the day, and JetBlue offers these connections as early as 6 to 8 a.m., which means that they offer some of the shortest connection times to these cities through that overnight flight. That's really quite useful considering that JFK is the busiest international airport by passengers in the Americas, and plus, despite JFK being at full capacity throughout pretty much the whole day, it probably wasn't very difficult for them to get takeoff and landing slots at this early time when there's so little demand. So while all this sounds good, why hasn't Turkish expanded this strategy? The only other westbound transatlantic red-eye flights that Turkish offers is to Miami, Mexico City, and Sao Paulo as of May 2026. But these other flights are also longer, so it makes sense that they need a red-eye so that they can get back to one of Turkish's biggest banks in the morning. The other thing that we need to consider is that over the past few decades, Turkish has only prioritized serving the largest cities across the Atlantic, and besides New York, pretty much all of them just had one flight per day. That started to change in the mid-2010s when Turkish was going through a growth phase, which included expanding their transatlantic presence to epic proportions, where new cities like Houston, Boston, and more appeared on the map. This only accelerated in 2019 when they moved to a new airport in Istanbul, and was also the same year they got the Boeing 787, a plane that not only made Turkish's transatlantic expansion possible to cities like Detroit, Dallas, Denver, and more, but one where they were now serving cities like Miami and Atlanta with more than one flight per day. But pretty much all these flights operate the standard way, a daytime flight west and a red-eye back. And the situation in New York shows us that if Turkish can't operate more than 2 or 3 flights per week in the opposite way, which is during that peak summer travel time, right, then perhaps there's a limit to the system and we'll have to wait and see where it goes.